The great thing about the webinar platform is, like you mentioned, it's scalable. Once you know your numbers, it just becomes a matter of comfort because these are evergreen. They work 24/7. The only thing that you really have to do as an agent is just like update your video once a year. I mean, if your presentation's working the way that you want it to and you're getting the numbers that you like, you just update your presentation with new Medicare figures every year. Like it's wonderful.
If you're a brand new Medicare agent and you're looking for a proven way to get fresh Medicare prospects that want to reach out to you every day to help them with their Medicare options, then this podcast is for you. Today, I have my good friend and I call webinar extraordinaire, Mr. Zach Rucker, the founder of Game Changer Leads, on the podcast today. Zach, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Rob, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
And so, Zach, what I really want to do before we dive into what the Mississippi folk call the meat and taters, if you will, before I dive into that, want to share a little bit of my relationship with you and the reason I wanted to have you on today. And our relationship probably started about 4 years ago. And my wife and I had to hit the reset button. We were, brand new again, if you will, and we were looking for fresh, quality people every single month to talk to. At that time, you had a mailer system that was working really well. I know we've also ordered some of the Medicare leads, and I think you're one of the best at that in the industry. And then we graduated into the webinar, I want to say about a year and a half ago, maybe a little bit longer than that, but close to that time frame, where I had been looking at this webinar online where it could be evergreen, right? You could just run it 24/7 and you could just drive traffic to it and people would book an appointment with you. And I believe this can be a proven method for a lot of Medicare agents out there that actually have money to invest in their business. So what I'd like to do today, Zach, if you're okay with it, is let's just break down the components of that. What makes a successful webinar? What does a brand new agent need to succeed in the webinar space, and how it can be a proven, maybe a full-time deal for their business, lead generation, or even a supplement or an add-on. So let me ask you this.
Absolutely.
How did you get started doing the webinars, and maybe talk about some of the people that you've worked with and some of the results that you've seen?
Yeah, absolutely. I got started doing webinars, it just kind of by happenstance, that I had a prospect who I was helping with their marketing within Game Changer Leads, and they said, "Hey, the leads are great and stuff, but I've been on the side doing this webinar style marketing, and is this something that you could help me optimize my results for? Because you're already really good at running Facebook ads and getting leads super cheap. So, but my lead cost is going up. Would you mind helping me kind of break down what I'm doing, and maybe we can I can get better results?" And I said, "Sure. Why the heck not? Let's do that." So at that time, we just kind of walked through what his ad campaign looked like, looked where his setup was, what's working, what's not working. I'm like, okay, well, here's the types of tweaks that I would recommend. And then it's just kind of taken off from there. Then we got past the lead generation stage. Then it became, hey, I'm getting all the leads I need now, but now my attendance rate to my webinar isn't the strongest. Like, here's what I'm doing. What do you think you can do to help me get more people to actually attend my webinar? It's like, okay, well, here's what you're doing. Let's try this 1, 2, 3, ABC. And then it just grew into, I've got the attendees, but now people are booking appointments. What's that about? And like, okay, well, let's work on that one step at a time, right? And it just blossomed.
Yeah, and one thing I forgot to mention in the intro too is that you're an agent. That's what I love about working with you, because you understand the whole psychology, all the mechanics, the ins and outs of the business, and you're able to provide advice that maybe somebody who's just running leads, and nothing against other companies or other individuals, but you just have a unique insight because you have been in the business. Will you talk about your background? Give us a 30,000-foot view of that and how that has played into your success in helping others with the webinar.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is a great point that you bring up, is because I attribute my background as an insurance agent myself, as an agency owner, as kind of why I've been successful at marketing for insurance agents. So I got started in the industry as an agency owner, as independent agent in 2017 or so. And, everybody entering the industry needs to get in front of people. You need leads. Sure. So at the time, I began buying leads like every other new agent at the suggestion of my upline at the time, which again was good advice. I needed to get in front of people. over time, I just kind of learned that I wasn't getting in front of the type of people that I wanted to talk to. And I also have a background in computers and technology. Went to college for
Sure.
computer engineering for a hot while. I'm like, you know what? I can figure out what's happening behind the scenes. I think when it comes to this marketing
Sure.
stuff that the lead generator is doing. So let me just try my hand at trying to like figure that out. And so that's where it grew to. I began to do my own lead generation based on my own feedback from the leads that I was generating for myself and what was working, what not
Right.
working. I just modified my marketing approach. And then fast forward, and eventually I became, the founder of Game Changer Leads, and now we're generating leads for insurance agents across the country. And what's been nice about my approach that I take with Game Changer is I've only done things that work personally for myself. I only use
Mm.
approaches that I know are going to create business for agents, not just leads, because it's not about creating leads. Anybody can make cheap leads, but if those don't turn into
Sure.
clients, they're useless, right? So that's kind of been what has made me successful in this space. And so, we just apply that to one thing at a time as we begin to go through this webinar marketing thing and, what works, what doesn't work from the mindset of a consumer. We already know all these T65s, individuals with
Yeah.
Medicare just getting hammered with Medicare stuff. So we've got to be able to stand out in a way that's educational, informational, and also useful to them. When your marketing can become useful to them, then it really becomes engaging.
Yeah, and it's interesting you talk about that because I can kind of hear maybe some of the people that are watching this today, especially new agents, because that's really what this channel is primarily focused on, is they're going, man, this just sounds like a lot. So let's start here. Let's start with the actual webinar recording of itself. Because one of the questions that I get asked a lot is, well, does that mean I have to be on a webinar 5 days a week? And the answer obviously is no. You can record it in such a way that it's evergreen, but from all the people that you've worked with and even your own research, how long does a webinar recording need to be? What maybe some specific elements that need to be in that webinar recording to
Mhm.
help it make it more successful and actually get people to want to reach out?
Absolutely. So agents can get really successful with this model when they really understand what the purpose of the webinar is. And many
Mm.
agents who may have struggled with it in the past and might think that the model doesn't work, they get locked up on thinking, okay, people have signed up for my Medicare 101 webinar. I've got to teach them
Right.
everything about Medicare. But that's not the real goal of the webinar. The goal of the webinar is to actually build trust with you as an insurance professional to be able to guide this person on helping them make the best decision for themselves. And at the end of the day, the goal of the webinar is to convince them that you are trustworthy enough that they should book an appointment to work with you. Now, how you structure your webinar to do that, it's super simple. You just don't overthink this stuff. Again, understanding that you're not going to get into the weeds about what Medicare is, you just need to hit the high
Mm.
points. So you're going to introduce yourself, tell people a little bit about your story, why you're qualified to help them, give them an example of somebody you've helped in the past, and then just begin
Mhm.
to break down the principles of what Medicare covers. Again, very high level. You don't have to get in the weeds with this stuff. Talk about Medicare supplements, how they work, what they cover, Medicare Advantage plans, same story, prescription drug plans. And then what becomes super helpful to individuals is helping them conceptualize, yeah, there's these products, but then what type of coverage do they give me? So help them
Mm.
understand if there's somebody who wants just minimal coverage at a minimal cost, these are the types of plan structures that you'd recommend.
Sure.
And then if you want the most coverage, you can have this style coverage in product 1, 2, and 3. And so they kind of have an idea of how much protection they want. After they know what kind of protection they want, then you can kind of begin to walk into, hey, now that you've begun to understand what you need, this is how we help people as an agency. We're independent. You don't pay us for our services. We get paid by the carriers for helping you find them if you enroll in their plan. We'll
Right.
do annual plan reviews, that type of stuff. And then just invite them to book an appointment with you. That whole process should take somewhere around 30 minutes or so. I've
Mhm.
seen webinars as short as 15 minutes get traction. I've seen webinars as long as 60 minutes, but my sweet spot that I've seen is right around the 30-minute mark for most people. And
Yeah,
when,
I think you're dropping some gold there because you know this being a Medicare agent as well is so many Medicare agents get lost in the weeds. I call it TMI in their clients to death, right? It's like they just
Mhm.
want to just pour all this in, even in in-person appointments, 2 hours later, it's like SpongeBob, 2 hours later, they're still presenting Medicare.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, these people don't even remember half of what you said. And
Right.
in the webinar, I took your advice on that as well. But I remember a quote from an old salesman mentor of mine. He said, "Trim the fat, not the lean." Right? A lot of
Yep.
times you can have so much fat in a webinar when you just want to make it lean, concise, interject your personality in
Right.
there, obviously, right? And like you said, build that know, like, and trust. And I have seen good results in that 27, about 32-minute range.
Yep.
And you, in your mind, I know what some of you are thinking today. You're thinking, man, there's just no way. I promise you, it works if you can be very concise and not get lost in the weeds. So I'm glad that you definitely mentioned that. Let me ask you this too. Like, what else does an agent need? Okay, we record our webinar, but we also
Yep.
got to have a CRM to handle all that marketing and follow up. Is that correct?
Absolutely. So the one of the reasons why the webinar model can work so well is that you've got to have a way to, you know, have a landing page that you can host for somebody to go register to. And we won't even talk about getting people to the landing page yet. We'll get there.
Sure.
But you need to have a place where you have a landing page where people can register. After people register, you need to have some basic automations like follow-up messages in place, right? They don't have to be like crazy complicated, but just very simple messages that go out to confirm the registration, remind them when the webinar is,
Hmm.
give them the link to actually go watch this evergreen webinar that they think is a live event. And then after that takes place, there's you want to make sure that you have a system that allows you, and most high-level based CRMs these days allow you to do this super easy, is just categorize your people. Did they show up to the webinar? And then did they book an appointment or not? Did they not show
Right.
up to the webinar? Why? If they did book an appointment, did they not show up to the appointment? And then based upon these different tiers of prospect you have now, they all need a different messaging series because there's, different things that need to be said to keep them engaged with your webinar system. And so high level based CRM allows you to do that these days. I think the other critical part about this is that there are different ways that you can categorize your prospects when you really think about how your system works. And we've talked a little bit about, just the five that we talked about. They attended, did not book, attended, booked, but didn't show up, those types of things.
Mhm.
But then when you get if you really want to get really into it, if you can have a system that allows you to target people who maybe looked at your calendar page but didn't book an appointment. Well, then it
Mm.
becomes, well, why did they not book an appointment? They were interested enough to see my calendar, but they've not booked an appointment. And having a
Right.
solid system in place that can now reach out to them and say, hey, we saw you looked at our calendar, but you didn't book. You want to tell us why? And then you can do a personal response to them when they respond back to you and actually figure out why and not leave that ROI on the table.
Yeah, and I love that you're bringing that up because if you're not tracking, if you don't have a system to track it, then you're really just throwing spaghetti on the wall, right? So talk about
Right.
how important it is that an agent needs to be able to track their numbers and know, and this is what you're talking about, like a go high level system, shameless plug. I use Agent CRM. And by the way, if you don't have a system, you can go down in the video description, click on it. It's a little referral link there, and you can go check that one out. That's one that you could use. There's plenty out there. And like I said, don't want to get lost in the weeds in that. But if you just need one to get started, we have that down in the video description. But when I was looking at the platform this morning, or actually yesterday, excuse me, it showed that my lead cost was about $11.50. And I thought, man, that's really, really good. And then my appointment, like self-booking cost to lead, total lead ratio, I think was like $130 to $140. And that's very important to know that because you make X amount for every person that you help, right? And you
Right.
want to know what you're actually investing for that person that self books, but also what your lead cost is. So that way you can scale that up. So will you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So, systems can get as complicated as you make them.
Hmm.
As you go down this path, I would really encourage people to keep it simple. There's a few
Sure.
simple metrics that you want to be tracking, even with just pen and paper, right? So if you're doing your own marketing and you know that you're spending $500 a month in your marketing, right? And you're booking 5 appointments. Well, you want to know your cost per appointment at that point, and that would be $100 in that case, right?
Sure.
And then you want to establish what is an acceptable cost per appointment for you. Are you within your KPI or not? And if you're not, we need to figure out why. And then once you've got your appointments, overall appointments booked, then how many of those people showed up? We call that your show rate. So then what's your cost per
Right.
showed appointment? A
Yeah.
good show rate on appointments is about 75%. I think that's great. So then you've got your cost per showed appointment. And then lastly, a number that's super important at the end of the day is your cost per acquisition or your cost per new client. So you spend your number that you spent on marketing divided by the number of sales that you got, and that's your cost per new customer. If that number is less than your commissions that you're collecting initially, you're in the green right out the gate, right? And then the last number that is kind of a bigger number, I think that some people can overlook sometimes, especially if they notice that their cost per acquisition or cost per customer is higher than they want, is what is your lifetime value of a client that you bring on? Because that can really begin to change your perspective on, is this successful or not? Because if you enroll somebody and then now that, the lifetime value of a client with your agency is $2,000 or $3,000.
Yeah.
Well, a cost per acquisition at $300 isn't necessarily so bad because you're still going to come out way ahead in the long run.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's a very good point, right? So many agents, they only worry about the front door, right? Them coming in, but they don't close the back door. And so if you're going to be a
Yes.
great agent, then you've got to learn how to close the back door and serve your clients at the highest level. I talk about this in my other videos. So definitely glad that you brought that up. And by the way, if you're getting value out of this, show Zach and I some love. Click on the like button. Comment below if there's something that Zach and I don't touch on during this interview today. Comment below, and I promise we'll get you the answers. This just helps us get this out to more people like yourself. So let's talk about that then. You're talking about cost per acquisition, cost per show, and all of that. The good news is a lot of these platforms help you with some of the basic to get those numbers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can track
Yep.
that better. How much should, in your experience, and I know it's different for everyone, but how much should a new agent invest? Is it something they should do, like get this webinar going in 5 states, 10 states initially? Should they spend $5 a day, $10 a day? Do you kind of have a sweet spot where you help new people that are going on board with the webinar to have success?
Sure. I really like to see when agents first begin, when it comes to the daily budget that they're spending, between $20 and $30 a day to start out.
Okay.
And that ends up being like $600 to $900 a month in marketing. The state
Okay.
footprint doesn't really matter a whole lot at that budget level, but typically the more footprint, more states you market to, the cheaper your lead costs are going to be. So that could be helpful. Now, that doesn't mean that you need to run out and get licensed in 50 states all at once. If you've got 1 or 2 or 3, you can certainly start there and begin to see how the machine works before you start investing in a bunch of additional state licenses. But that's where I like to see agents start out to really begin to learn how the system works.
Yeah, and I think it's crucial here, and we'll get into how we get people there. I kind of put the cart before the horse, but I think it's important that this is not for you if you're not willing to invest in your business, right? We're an
Yes.
entrepreneur. This is a business, and if you want
And
to
you
get
can't just do it
fresh
for 1
quality
month
people,
either. It's
right?
it's not something that you're going to
Exactly.
do 1 month. Yeah. If you
So
think about
answer that
the
then. Yeah, answer how long do you think people should give, like a timeline?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that can also be based on, if you think about what are the typical enrollment timelines of somebody who's turning 65. Part of
Sure,
that will also depend on, how targeted is your marketing in terms of when people are actually aging into Medicare too.
sure,
If by chance, you're only in front of people who are 6 months out from actually turning 65 and you're predominantly a Medicare Advantage agents, which means that you've got to wait till they get the red, white, and blue card 3 months before Medicare, you're going to have a 3 month
mm,
window that before you can actually do an enrollment. So you're in it for at least 6 months to actually get paid on somebody that you had a lead on 6 months prior, right? So I would say that if you're going to begin to go down this path, a minimum to really do this is probably 4 to 6 months. So if you've not got
yeah,
four to
I
six
agree.
months of marketing money that you could put into it, of 600 to 900 a month, if you're going to do your own marketing, you might want to skip this for now. But when you're ready to invest and you can actually begin to see the wheel beginning to turn, um, definitely give it a shot.
Yeah, and one thing that Zach too to really point out here is it is a long-term play. I mean, you'll get some success short-term too, but I always tell agents, you just never know when you could have that 1 month right? Where it seems like everybody self books, everybody gets from you, and it pays for the whole year or pays for 6 months. I can't tell you how many people that maybe I had a couple of months where it was iffy, but then I had just a breakout month that helped me way more than recuperate my costs, put me back in the green. And so you can't have a mindset of, well, I didn't have a great week or I didn't have a great month. You got to give it that period of time, enough time, because you just never know when you could recuperate that cost as a whole. So, like, I'll give you an example. I think it was this last AEP, we had something like 10 to 12 turning 65s that were a result of the webinar and other marketing efforts we did earlier on in the year, because we usually market a year out. And it's like all of those seeds we planted all year round, right? We were nurturing them through the system, letting them know we're still here. Hey, we're still here to help. And all of a sudden, like 10 to 12 of those just came through like that. But it wasn't instant gratification, right? It was like I had to keep sowing those seeds to get those people in the
Right.
pipeline. So I'm definitely glad you bring that up. And I know we're going to get to the marketing piece here, but the way my mind works, this popped in my head as you were talking about CPA, cost per acquisition, cost per show, and all these other KPIs. Talk about, because you work with a lot of different agents in this space, talk about how important it is to make sure that you're cross-selling effectively.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's another metric that I didn't even bring up. It's one that established agency owners will begin to track. People don't
Mhm.
think of it out the gate. Is also what's your typical or average commission per sale that you make, and if you can
Right.
increase that number too, that also helps you get in the green right out the gate. Especially if you have what seems to be a high cost per acquisition, you're spending $350 to get a new client. It may become
Yeah.
irrelevant if your initial commissions for a new client are $1,500 right out the gate because
Right.
you're able to cross sell multiple plans. So then it really doesn't matter so much.
Yeah, and listen, if you're watching this today and you're a brand new agent and you're like, "Man, I just barely know how to sell Medicare," I got you covered. I'll have both of my cross-selling videos down in the video description where you can check on that, or when this video ends, you can click on the link and it will take you there. I'm giving that to you absolutely free because I wanna see you win in this space. So let's talk about the marketing piece, right? We have the webinar recorded, 27, 35 minutes, maybe somewhere in there, gotta find your sweet spot. You have
Yep.
the elements in that you talked about, right? You kind of know, I don't want to get lost in the weeds. I don't want a TMI. I want to be concise, but I want to be relatable. Also have that
Hmm.
strong call to action at the very end. I want to get good at tracking my numbers so I know exactly what I'm spending. I want to spend that $20 to $30 per day, make sure I'm in multiple states. Now comes, in my opinion, one of the hardest parts, and this is why I use someone like you who's really smart in this area. Now we're talking about the marketing piece, right? Do we use Facebook? Do we use Instagram? Do we use YouTube, Google PPC? Talk about that for a second.
Absolutely. What I really like in this space for the webinar market is I like using Facebook and Instagram.
Okay.
What is special about those particular platforms is that those two platforms have really made it simple for us to do what's called interruption based marketing and to target
Okay.
our target demographic. The challenge with, I think, with webinars when it comes to like trying to market these things on Google or a search engine is typically people already know what they're looking for specifically when they go there. They don't necessarily know that they need you. People don't
Yeah.
go to a search engine saying, "Hey, I need to find a webinar today." They already know that they're going to call a specific insurance agency or a local Medicare agent most times. Like they're already there.
Right.
But with Facebook and Instagram style marketing, what is super cool about them is you can get very creative in your marketing because those platforms allow you to put together ad copy, videos of yourself talking about your webinar. Why is it
Mhm.
important that somebody watch it? Why are you trustworthy and you're somebody who can actually help them in this space. A nice short 30-second video can work wonders for getting people to click on your ad to go to your landing page. And then, when your marketing that you have put on these platforms kind of matches what is information on your landing page, that's how you create a conversion. And so, yeah, these platforms, they are super useful and they're actually really simple to use at a high level. And yeah, sure, you can get into the weeds about placement and numbers and stuff like that. That's more of an advanced
Yeah.
thing. But right out the gate, if you can put together an ad that's just super relatable about why somebody would benefit from watching your webinar, you're going to create leads for yourself. So it doesn't have to be hard.
Yeah, and I want to stress this as well. One of the things that I love about the webinar is people actually self-book. Right, we're not even getting into, you can call the people that actually register, but there are people that self-book that say, "Hey, I wanna talk to you," without you having to reach out to them, and there is
Yeah.
people having great success, not even calling the other people, they're just talking to the people that self-book, and because they're learning how to cross-sell efficiently, they're putting themselves in the green initially, and then they're learning how to close that back door on the back end, and they're being super profitable just talking to self-book people, right?
Yeah, they are. It's an incredible opportunity because the way that you do your marketing from the very front end, from the first time somebody sees your advertising, you can personalize it to you and you put yourself on the landing page. They see you in the webinar. It's just a very nice, educated prospect that decides, yeah, I want to work with this person to help me with my Medicare. And that it coincidentally can create some very strong show rates for your appointments. So you're actually then talking to people. Appointments are great. But at the end of the day, if your marketing is congruent from beginning to end, that's how you get the sale.
Great point. And the reason I bring that up, Zach, is you know this, there's maybe some people watching this today that are just not the best at picking up the phone, if you will, and just outbound calling, right? We've all dealt with that, having to pick up that real heavy phone. It's like 1,000 pounds, when you
Hmm.
first start.
Yeah.
And so I'm telling you, if you can, like Zach said, if your message can be congruent, right? If from beginning to end, you will get people that want to talk to you without you doing anything at all. And you can make legitimate sales and have success, just doing that alone. Now, in our team, we call everybody. That's just the way that we roll here. But for the new person, you can still make it just off of self-booking appointments only if you learn how to cross sell and you learn, like you said, to have that messaging all match and be the same. Talk about how AI has revolutionized the webinar space here.
Absolutely. So AI, it can be used creatively in so many different ways in this space. Uh, you can use AI avatars to help you test different video messages without you having to actually record 15 different takes of the same ad, but just with a slightly different message. Um, Super awesome. And then you could create these videos where they look like you talking, and man, you've got now all these videos of you out there talking about your webinar and with a slightly different spin, and you didn't
Check.
spend 10 hours in the studio recordings. Um, there's technology that lets you do that. You can also use AI on the during your messaging series, so on like your follow up. So after somebody registers for your appointment or registers for the webinar, or maybe registers for the appointment or they miss or whatever, AI can be super helpful these days in conversing with these individuals on your behalf in a way that is also congruent to your branding and how you sound, but also is compliant too. So you don't want to be having this AI that's off the rails. But the
Mhm.
point of the AI and the messaging is that it allows you to stay active without you having to do anything. Systems of old, systems of a year and a half, 2 years ago, I mean, you were
Sure.
responding to every message manually, and running a
Yeah.
webinar was like a full-time job in itself.
Right.
It doesn't have to be that way anymore.
Yeah, no, I definitely love it, and we're using it in our business. And I'll be honest with you, when we first talked about it, I was like, I don't know, but it works, right? And you even have technology where you could use AI to create a webinar that's effective
Yeah.
and efficient as well. So, I mean, this is how powerful AI is, and how it makes it a lot easier. And one thing I want to go back real quickly, Zach, in regards to the numbers, and I would love for you just to take a couple of minutes and speak about this as well. Is a lot of people say, well, I get tons of referrals, and that's great. But and I know that organic methods, right? Free methods is what we would call it, grassroots, those are good, but they're not really scalable if you want to take your business to the next level. And so talk about the
Yeah.
importance of having like a webinar that's scalable. If you know your numbers and you're tracking it, how you can scale that not only for yourself as an individual, but also if you want to bring other agents on as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So the great thing about the webinar platform is, like you mentioned, it's scalable. Once you know your numbers, it just becomes a matter of comfort because,
Yeah.
these are evergreen. They work 24/7. The only thing
Yeah.
that you really have to do as an agent is just like update your video once a year. I mean, if your
Yeah.
presentation's working the way that you want it to and you're getting the numbers that you like, You just update your presentation with new Medicare figures every year. Like it's wonderful. Uh, Once you know what your numbers are and you're like, oh, okay, cool. I've got a cost per acquisition of $200. My initial commissions every year or on a sale are roughly $450, whatever they
Sure.
may be. I'm in the green. I can, for every $200 I spend, I'm going to get a client. So now let's spend $600 spend $600 more and send to see if I can get more clients in the door at that same cost per acquisition rate. So then it just becomes a factor of the more money you pump in, the more money you're going to get out. But you got to keep tracking them along the way. Adding another state footprint, if that helps, you see your numbers kind of get a little out of line, maybe cost per lead goes up, figure out why. Like, it doesn't have to be hard. Adding demographic that you can market to is always helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I definitely love the part that it's scalable and just makes it easier for you to have X amount of appointments every single week, and even if you want to use it as a supplement, like for me, I use it as a supplement where I do other seminars and, like local seminars and other methodologies. But the webinar has been good for me to supplement those leads on my calendar, and it works. I mean, I can't say that enough. It actually works. So somebody today is watching this and going, man, that just sounds like a lot. Well, here's the good news. I have someone on the podcast today, and that's Zach, if you haven't figured it out by now, that can do all of this for you, that you can work with, that knows the proven ins and outs of the system. So, Zach, real quickly, as we close out today, talk about how people can get in contact with you and what that process looks like, because I know that you don't work with just anybody, right? They got to meet your criteria, and there's certain things that you're looking for in individuals. And we talked a little bit about it in the investment part of it earlier, and you got to have
Yeah.
that long-term mindset and not just try it for a month and then, quit and get out. So talk about how people can start working with you if this is something they're interested in.
Yeah, absolutely. Super simple way to get a hold of me is you can go to gamechangerleads.com if you'd like to fill out our questionnaire box on the website. And, happy to reach out to you, have the conversation about that. You can always reach me directly if you want to. You can call me at 816-387-3402. All right. And put my phone number out there on the internet. But, if you want to have the conversation, give me a call, shoot me a text message, open door. You can even find me on Facebook, just Zach Rucker. Drop me a Facebook message. I'm approachable. I don't bite. Reach out anytime.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
can't vouch for him enough, guys. For those who are watching this today, I've had a great experience with Zach. We've had this great relationship, as I said, for the past several years. And this is definitely something that I believe every Medicare agent needs to look at one point or another, whether it's just starting out of the gate and you have the money and you have the mindset and you're willing to go for it, or if it's something you want to supplement your current lead flow, or if you're wanting to build an LOA agency and you want to be able to scale something to be able to provide leads for all of your different agents, this is something you definitely need to look at. Zach, as we close today, is there something I didn't bring up? Because I didn't want to get too lost in the weeds, but I wanted to give people enough to kind of understand the webinar platform. But is there something I didn't touch on that I should have brought up today?
One thing I do want to bring up is that sometimes agents or even agency owners, if you will think that this webinar model is kind of like a small scale thing. And I can
Sure.
assure you that it's not. We've got clients spending $1,000 a day in their webinar marketing because they've got 10 to 15 agents that are just working T65 appointments all day, every day, and they're only working in the appointments that were booked. No outbound calling. So this is something that is super scalable. It also seems sometimes like, you'll hear the phrases of, the webinar marketing space is getting so congested. There's so many people doing
Yes.
webinars these days. How many people there are online turning 65 every day?
Jeez.
There's
Yeah,
still,
tons.
it's still a big blue ocean for webinar marketing.
Yeah, I think the last figure I looked at, it was still over 10 or 11,000 turning 65 every single day. And that's a great point, because I've heard that from people. Well, I would do the webinar, but it looks saturated. And I always tell agents, yeah, but there's only one of you. Right?
Yeah.
People are looking for you. There's people out there that want your unique personality. They're looking, like for us, as former pastors and church planners, our name of our agency is Agape. I can't tell you how many people have reached out to us and go, when I saw Agape, I knew I wanted to work with you. Now, that's just our DNA. That's just who we are. And they wanted to specifically work with a faith-based company. So while I do understand what people are trying to say, I always tell people the way you really differentiate yourself in any business is you, right? To use your God-given creativity to reach the people and get in front of the people. And with 10 to 11,000 people turning 65, I can assure you there's not enough agents out there to help
Yeah.
all those people. So that's a great point that you bring up. Well, Zach, thank you for coming on today and just giving us a 30,000-foot view of this webinar space. We're going to put Zach's info down in the video description. If you guys want to reach out, you're more than welcome to reach out to me as well. Now, I can share even more of my experience, but I can absolutely 150% vouch for Zach that he has done wonders for our agency and has been a great asset over the past few years. And as I said in the middle of the video, if you are wanting to learn how to cross-sell effectively and efficiently, then I want you to go check out my cross-selling video series here.